On Keep the Faith, you did most of the writing yourself. On These Days, it's back to that original thing. How did that all come about? Did you just find time to sit down in a room and...
Pretty much, because with Keep the Faith, Richie was still committed to a couple of club shows, or little things that they did. They did like a dozen shows or something like that, and he had done a few videos, and he was trying hard to promote the record. And in the meantime, I was writing and invited the guys all over to listen to what I was doing, and it pretty much had it together. So when we toured that record as hard as we did, and it did as well as we did, there was a real feeling of accomplishment having entered the 90s in such a great way. When a lot of our peers unfortunately weren't doing as well, there was a great feeling of accomplishment going into this record. And in 1994, to be January of 94, when we got off the road, we immediately began what was a real we record. These days, I think the message in there is a rather positive one in somewhat negative times, and what it's saying is, ultimately in the chorus, it's saying that all we got left is us these days, and it means the viewer here and us, or the viewer and the listener of the records. It's all we got is each other these days. Enough of complaining about, oh, there's no future, there's no this, there's no that. It's going, look, let's get on with it, and it's done with a bit of fictional characters, and it's a pretty uplifting song, one that we enjoy playing.
So the Wembley shows, I saw the Saturday show, which was just incredible. And so 70,000 people, 3 nights. How do you feel? Is that like another dream come true, another goal reached?
Yeah. Wembley Stadium, the history in that building, through the years with Live Aid and the Nelson Mandela concerts that were a couple years ago that we watched on much. A lot of those, events that were broadcast around the world, you watched from Wembley Stadium. And I was telling the guys, I asked them if they had remembered, because I did, in the parking lot of that Hilton Hotel that's right on the corner there. We took some pictures once in 1984, and Wembley was, down that street, and never even crossed our minds that someday, we'd be playing there. But I said, you guys remember those pictures? And everybody remembered it like it was yesterday. Here we were on the Kiss tour. Certainly wasn't our hotel, but we're standing in front of the Hilton, playing it as if it were, and taking pictures, right down the street from what was going to become a very historic event in our career.
I know you've spoken in interviews previous of like always having set goals. I know, about when you go into a new project, you set new goals. What are your goals right now? Maybe early on there was that kind of an attitude. It's like setting goals to achieve X, Y, and Z. I think that all the milestones have been met and exceeded beyond our wildest expectations, so that the thinking behind anything now is go out there like we did on that Saturday night and have a blast. And when you're walking away from the stage, don't walk away from it. Look at it. Walk backwards and take it in. And that's the kinds of nights we're having these days. It's that now I go out there and look around and I take it in and I enjoy the moment. And that's the attitude. It's not worrying about, or the next big thing, the next this, the next that. It's just really enjoying the ride for a change.
I think it's a song about not being able to come up with some lyrics, and basically, so what you do is kind of like let the music do the talking, let your guitar do the talking. It's about it's about having a creative block on lyrics and things like that. So, and I think musically, orchestrally, there's a lot of different kinds of music and stuff involved in it. It's one of my favorite tracks on this record.
Very powerful track.
At the Wembley show, you did "Rockin' All Over the World." Now, is that what Status Quo? Was that the name?
No, it's Creedence. It's an old Creedence song.
Now,
Fogerty wrote it.
Who did it?
Fogerty did it, but
at Live Aid.
No, Status Quo did it at Live Aid.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Correct. And they were a big band here and across Europe. I know they never meant anything in America. I guess the same in Canada, right?
Canada,
I remember as a little kid, a friend of mine went to Greece and came back and Status Quo. You got what the hell is Status Quo? I still haven't heard their records, you know. But I picked up on that song and I said, wow, what a great song. And I said, Status Quo. And they said, oh, no, it's a Creedence song. And I went, oh, now I can really do it. And I just latched onto it and I said, what a great rock song. What we did Sunday night was we brought Bob Geldof out. And Bob and us did I Don't Like Mondays together to end a perfect Sunday night. And that was spectacular.
Yeah, how did that hook up? Have you been acquainted
Just
with him?
we knew each other a little bit, and when I got into town, I asked him if he's coming down. He said he'd like to, and I said, well, let's play. And then it started to, then we started thinking about it. I said, oh, I Don't Like Mondays on Sunday night. Perfect, And it was broadcast across the UK, and we were filming it for a concert video movie, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to release it as an EP here. We're going to put out 4 tracks from Wembley because the broadcast went so well, and that'll be the single.
So you say you're going to be doing a concert video. Is that something that's going to be released worldwide?
Yeah. I mean, the whole Wembley experience was just so much fun that we said, what the hell, let's film it, And we didn't even decide that until the first night. We showed up, we did sound check the first day. We said, I think we should hire a movie crew. And for some miracle, this guy got it together in 2 days. 17 camera shoot. Way too much money, but it was worth it.
Walking down the street, hey, God.
I thought it was Hey Bob.
We were going to say it was Hey Bob, but we decided it was Hey God. It's kind of like a letter to God from people who are not having such a good time.
And for all you dyslexic folks out there, it's Yay Dog.
Excellent.
Third-person writing that was prevalent on earlier records, because like with Keep the Faith, it was like very much me, I, us, we I believe. And on this one, there's a little more she and they, and was that something that just...
Well, narratives took place in songs like These Days as my overview of the Generation X, you can't. Me being the eternal optimist and, thinking that, man, I'm the living proof that, these dreams exist. We wrote, These Days with the idea that it's not easy, but you can still achieve whatever you want. And I wasn't going to say, and isn't my life wonderful, because I did. It'd be better to say from the viewpoint of a narrative. Hey God was me sitting in Manhattan, sitting in a traffic jam where people literally were walking over a guy who was passed out on the street. I thought to myself, my God, he could be having a heart attack. He could have fallen down from from diabetes or something. Not that he was drunk or high or something. People in New York just walking right over him. And I don't understand how these things exist in 1995, having just come from Bombay where there's still lepers on the street begging for money. You go, wow, what a different world. So Hey God was a narrative too, and it was an overview. And so those exist, but there's some introspective stuff with something to believe in, or if you're, look into it deeply or smartly enough, you realize what Damned is about, and, those kinds of things that are very first person. So, the point I guess I'm making is that we took 11 months to write the record, and that's a long time by our standards, and in doing so, we wanted it to be a real cross-section of ideas, so that it wasn't just, oh boy, aren't they miserable or aren't they happy, that it would show a lot of different influences.
Damned is sort of a cross between old soul songs like If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right, meets Bon Jovi in the 90s, like somewhat of Keep the Faith, or...
Got a little funk to it.
Yeah, it's got a funk to it.
The band's jamming.
Horn section. The idea production-wise was to get back to our roots, and one of the original titles for this album was Strip, and the idea behind it was that it was much more stripped down, approached musically. And so Damned has that feel, again, as does Love Song and a song called Hearts Breaking Even. Very R&B influenced, soul music.
Now looking back, and it seemed like you're more comfortable with the whole thing, and you sort of have, settled into this whole road, touring, record, release a record, promo, whatever. How important do you think the solo records and that time off, that break, made you sort of reassess it? How important was that now?
They were incredibly important for a number of reasons. One was they were confidence builders. I think for both of us to know that, you know, you were capable of making records without, you know, the band. You know, I could still write #1 songs without the band, you know, and that was a good confidence builder, but it was a way to reassess how much you loved being in a quote-unquote band, because even when Blaze of Glory was at #1, it was a rather lonely feeling in that I didn't have anyone to share it with. And that helped us collectively realize we do like each other's company enough to even sacrifice, you know, successes for the sake of the team, I guess you'd say.
First single, real R&B influenced soul song. You could just see Otis Redding having sung it.
Sam and Dave.
And
Where's Sam?
it's really comes out, you know, it's pretty evident.
Sam
in
and
this
Bond.
one.
Now, you worked with Peter Collins, and I guess last time when I spoke to you in Toronto, you said some of the stuff he's done, like Rush Records and Queensrÿche Records. Was that what sold you on him? Just that resume, or?
At first, it was the resume. It was so varied, from Queensrÿche and Rush and Suicidal Tendencies to Mary Chapin Carpenter and you know, Irish folk music, and you said, wow, this guy's got, you know, some background musically. And when he came up to work on the greatest hits, his contribution to the song Always was immense, and truly in the production of the song, and it was completely against anything that I had ever done as a writer or a band leader or a producer, and it very much intrigued me. So we knocked out the greatest hits, and Always was the biggest thing I'd ever written or we'd ever written, and then we hired him for the album, and I just certainly had a vision, and his input was great in that he was incredibly loyal to the project, and the pace was grueling to him. He couldn't understand how anybody would work like this, but we get in the studio and that's all we do. You know, we don't sleep, we don't eat, we don't take breaks. We just sit in there and make records. And at the end of it, he called me up and he said, thanks, that was really invigorating for me. And what was so good about it is that in the same breath, we were almost working that hard to show him, listen, man, we could do this ourselves, okay? We don't. And I think that the great thing is we helped each other get over a great hump, you know, where he wanted to be pushed to a next level, and we needed to show that we could do it ourselves to a next level. And I think it made both of us better record producers.
Great. Now, you mentioned the greatest hits and Always. Were you surprised how, like, just huge Always just became? I mean, it's not a short song, first of all, you know, and it just became enormous. It was #1 in Canada for, like, I think 3 or 4 months or something like that. And then the Crossroads record also sold huge.
Trigundo, right? You know, I think that right now, for the life of a record, you know, even Slippery during its actual life at that time, it's the biggest record we've ever done, which is pretty unbelievable. I would have never thought that we would be making records that would be bigger than Slippery. And Crossroads has now, I believe, exceeded that. But we never anticipated this kind of success for it or for Always. I had no idea it was going to be such a big song.
Probably the first song written for this album. I wrote it on the island of Mustique. And
Beautiful.
yeah, it was pretty nice.
Over a tropical drink, I
Over a
suppose.
tropical drink. But rather introspective, probably the most introspective song on the record. And stretches us musically. You know, it really does stretch us musically.
Interesting rhythms and tones, and just the whole complexion of the song is different from that.
It's less a stylistic.
Richie or I will go to each other's house. I mean, the song these days was written at his house. You know, Hey God or Guitar was written at my house. Lie to Me we wrote in California at my house. And so it's just like, whose house you want to go over to today, what's going on there, you know? Who's got some food in the refrigerator kind of thing. So we sit down and there's certain days where you go in and go, I got an idea. You know, I think it should go like this. And there's other days where he'll have a riff that we'll work off of. But it's definitely a collaborative situation.
One track that really stood out, I mean, I've listened to it several times, but Something for the Pain. Well, how did that song come together? I think it's got such a catchy feel to it.
Drove us crazy, that
Yeah.
piece of...
So you're
I mean, up until we were mixing, and we were still recording that song. I mean, John Kolodner, the A&R guy, works for Columbia now. Very famous A&R guy, and that of the old school. You know, he's Aerosmith's guy from Geffen. Now he's with them in Columbia. He A&Rs our records since he helped us get Fairburn to do Slippery. He's been, you know, a very close associate of the band. Anyhow, with that song, we all knew that it was close. You know, back at the Christmas shows, we were playing it live, and said, the chorus isn't right. We got to work on this. And I mean, for 4 months we worked on it. Completely rewrote the title, the chorus, the lyrics, everything. Recorded it. Kolodner comes in and goes, I don't like it. You know, throw it out. Rewrite it again. You go, I know there's something here. And it just drove us batty until, you know, one day it finally got, you know, what it needed. And then Kolodner, I mean, because we were just burned, all of us were burned, he says, let's put an accordion in the verse. Why don't we, you know, try it this way? And I went, wow, that's very unique. Okay, if it stinks, we'll throw it off. And then everybody went, this is really cool.
Yeah. I find that on this record, I've noticed horns stand out a little bit, and also the sitar just seems to be used a little more. I know it had been used on previous records, but was that just something Richie decided to do?
The sitar, yeah.
Yes.
What song did he do that on? Guitar Lies Bleeding in My Arms or something? I don't even really remember, but yeah, I think that was it. And the horns, I think that the horns and the lyrical content of certain songs, as well as even the chord progressions of like the first single, are all nods to the roots and a lot more R&B influence, soul music influence, and it's prevalent in the record. And at this point, we have the creative freedom, and we're growing as writers, and so you're not worrying about anything. You're just doing. You know, let's play with the Stones in Paris. It's a big thrill. You know, we haven't opened for anybody in years, and I gladly am going to open for the Stones. I'm running for the opportunity. And I think if we did it as well, and we're feeling what I imagine they feel, as good as they feel, then yeah, but I'm not going to beat us up, you know. We're only going to tour till New Year's. That's a 6-month tour in Bon Jovi world has never happened. You know, so we're only touring until New Year's Eve. That's
quickly about the live show. What I saw at Wembley, is that going to be the worldwide thing with the buildings and stuff like that, or was that an exclusive European thing?
Well, it's been in Japan. Not so much in the Far East because it's difficult to get around Bombay and, you know, Manila and those kinds of places. So it was a smaller version of that. In America, we're doing what they call sheds, you know, amphitheaters. So we're starting with 3 nights in New York, but it won't accommodate that stage. And so it'll be somewhat of a smaller version. But I believe in Toronto, for example, we're doing the CNE. So, you know, depending on what ticket sales warrant, I'd like to think that we're going to bring the whole kit and caboodle up there, you know, and then across Canada, depending on the size venues we're doing. Because this is a full-fledged stadium tour. These are 50 to 70 to, you know, this weekend is 80,000 people a night. It's a big tour.